All right, welcome to today's show. The audio should be better now. So today I'm going to talk about what is happening with the Fed not cutting interest rates. I'm also going to talk about the four ways that the United States is becoming a crypto nation, and then we're going to get into Saylor's indestructible balance sheet and what he's actually doing to support the forward movement and progress of Bitcoin. And also, one day soon, MSTR will be back on track and going up, but it's not today. We're going to talk a little bit about MSTR going down and what's happening in that side of the world as well. So let's jump in today. Not financial advice, not tax advice, not legal advice. Do your own research. Please let me know that you can hear me in the chat box because we're having some audio issues before it should be fixed. Okay. So so I want to jump in and talk about just briefly. Let's hit the Fed right on the head. They didn't cut interest rates. Pretty simple. A lot of talk in the meeting about really nothing. Talk about inflation, talk about jobs, and really not saying a lot. The main thing and takeaway is simple: that a lot of the members are leaning towards the idea that we will cut interest rates two times this year in 2025, but it was not today. And unfortunately, that's the news. So some are leaning towards the fact that it might be three interest rate cuts, but the majority is two interest rate cuts. So there you have it. That's the news with the Fed. It's not that exciting, and we'll see what happens with the markets when they open back up. So let's jump in today. I want to zoom out and talk a little bit about what's going on with strategy. Also, I know there's some disappointment with strategy, and just mind you that there's some big short positions on strategy, and it holding its base around 370, 369 is good because there's shorts out in those on strategy. And if strategy drops below 370, 369, 365, we could have some trouble and it could go lower. So 370 is a good support, and then eventually strategy has to jump through 395 and then 400 and 418 for it to take off because it has to liquidate the short positions. And right now that's not happening. It's trading sideways. My buddy and I are joking that it's more like a stable coin right now. It just kind of goes up and down. And you look at the graphs and the charts, it's just like it's like a little wave going back and forth. So it's not that exciting, but that's the deal. And Moon says Circle is running circles around MSTR. They sure are. Since Circle went public, they went to the moon up hundreds of percents. And absolutely, IPOs are coming. And that's not the last of the IPOs that are going to come out in the crypto world. So there you have it. But let's jump in. Let's zoom out. I think in times like this, it's important to look at the sentiment and what's really going on in the marketplace and look at the future vision of zooming out. Because when there's not good news in the short term in terms of what's happening with strategy, and Bitcoin's, kind of chopping sideways too, and it's got strong resistance levels at 108, so it has to move through 108. So when this is happening, let's zoom out, look at the bigger picture, and look at the good news so we can focus on the future as well, even though sometimes present-day news isn't that exciting on the price front. All right, so jumping in and taking a look at strategy here. I've been watching a bunch of Saylor interviews and decoding them, and he's basically saying we created an indestructible balance sheet. And what he's saying about this is it's very simple. Investor capital. Investors provide capital through preferred stock. So the preferred stock has been their big thing that they're hitting. They're not hitting the ATM right now. And so they get this capital in. They do Bitcoin purchases. And the big thing about strategies preferred stock, and the reason why Saylor calls it an indestructible balance sheet is because there's no repayment date on these preferred stocks. So unlike a convertible bond where there is a repayment date, there's none on this. So this is long-term stability for the company. And Saylor says the capital never comes due. We create an indestructible balance sheet. This company doesn't have to pay back the money at a certain date. They don't have to worry about bills later. And it's like building a Lego tower that never falls is the basic idea here, okay? So fixed income people win, Bitcoin people win. That's why strategy is a winner in the marketplace because it's serving the fixed income marketplace, the investors who want to get guarantees of 10% annual returns. They have a lower risk profile. They want a predictable income stream. They go for the preferred stock. The Bitcoin enthusiasts, people like me, they go for the common shares. We want to get more power, higher potential upside, and we want to participate in the cryptocurrency growth. So that's two sides of the coin that strategy is serving the aggressive people and the fixed people, which is a good thing because they're hitting both markets. Now, the world has changed for Bitcoin. Michael, in his interview, got excited and he said all of the fundamental planets have aligned. And what does this mean? The U.S. government now calls Bitcoin a real digital commodity. It's no secret, but it's also news to focus on that the planets are aligning. Big banks are allowed to hold Bitcoin. That's a big deal. Accountants change rules so companies can show Bitcoin in their books more easily. We know this happened a while ago. And more than 100 public companies hold Bitcoin. So the world's finally taking Bitcoin seriously, and this is very, very good for the next 6 months, the next 6 years, the next 60 years. The important thing to look at is there's only 450 Bitcoin are left each day. So the daily Bitcoin supply is 450. Total new Bitcoin available each day is 450. You have 100 plus public companies. The number of public companies that are holding Bitcoin, right? That's 100 plus. And there's 100% consumption rate. So all of it's being consumed on a daily basis. When you look at Bitcoin companies, which is 100 plus now, and you look at ETFs like BlackRock, they're buying all of it up. So it's all being consumed. So there is a supply shock coming. It's going to, at some point, reflect itself in the price. We will see it at some point. We just have to be patient. Saylor maintains this position that Bitcoin will go up 30% a year. He basically says Bitcoin will grow 29% every year for 21 years, up to 13 million per coin by 2045. Okay, this is old data, of like saying if you were holding Bitcoin at 65,000, it would be worth this, but it's now $100,000. So if you have $100,000, if you won Bitcoin at $100,000 and it goes up to 13 million in 20 years, you can do the math. Bitcoin has gone up 57% per year over the past 4.5 years. That's double the tech stocks, and it's 8 times real estate. So this is a real asset. It's moving. It's beating a lot of them. Okay, so there's lots of questions too in the media when people interview Saylor. They're always looking for cracks in the ship, and the question is why doesn't MSTR show their Bitcoin wallets to everybody? Why don't they show proof of the fact that they have the Bitcoin? Do they really have the Bitcoin? Blah 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 blah. Okay. And a lot of people are saying that he should prove that he really owns the Bitcoin. But here's his response, so you don't get bought into this FUD that you're hearing out there in the marketplace, is we are audited by a big public company auditor called KPMG. So big trusted accountants check his books to verify his Bitcoin holdings. The security concerns. It exposes our custodians, our counterparties, and our employees to IT risks. So if they're literally showing their cards to everybody, it's a security risk. And from a privacy protection standpoint, they want to keep their wallet addresses private, so they're not targeted. It's a very rational thing. I've seen this come up in a couple interviews where people are challenging him on this, and they're doing the smart thing. Okay, they do get professional auditing. They're just not going to show their keys to the world. So smart. I like what he's doing. I trust that they have the Bitcoin. I don't know about other people, but I believe it. They get audited. There you go. And so we're exploring zero knowledge proof. He says we're working on smarter ways to show proof without showing everything. We're considering doing proof of reserves using zero knowledge proofs. It's a fancy way to say we'll prove we have Bitcoin without telling you exactly where it is. We don't want you to know exactly where it is. So there you go. The world's changing fast. There is the OG crypto world, and there's a new class of institutional Bitcoin holders like BlackRock, is what Saylor says. Okay? That means the old school Bitcoin fans believe in total freedom and self-control, and Bitcoin enthusiasts, I'm one of those. And then you have the new school big money players who want security, audits, and rules. So both teams are joining together to create a whole new world. It's so wonderful because everybody's happy and everybody's going to live together and work together. All right? So that's the story. And on basically what's happening with an overview of what strategy is doing and what Saylor is talking about. As you know, the preferred stock strategy is big. They're offering a fixed US dollar yield and swapping it into a Bitcoin yield, a BTC yield. So they go to their investors, hey, we'll pay you out 10%. You give us this money. They buy Bitcoin, and give Bitcoin yield back to us as the shareholders of MSTR. So it's a win-win game all around. Again, we need to look at this because, if you really look at the limited supply of Bitcoin, we all know there's only 21 million. We all know that about 19.6 million are currently mined. But the big thing is the daily supply is 450. You really, if one is wavering or doubting about the future of Bitcoin or where it's going to go or is it sound or what's happening, just look at the daily new supply. There's only 450. I mean, that's crazy. Such a small amount of supply that's getting gobbled up every single day. So you're in the right place at the right time. The indestructible balance sheet, if you want to go into it deeper, the main premise of hearing sailors say this all the time is that the capital never comes due. And there's a lot of talk, and I'll show you in this next slide about the fact that how is strategy going to pay off their debts? How are they going to maintain their interest payments out? And it's simple when you look at the balance sheet, and I'll show you in a second. When you actually look at the math, um, it's a no-brainer of how they'll actually do it. Okay, so Bitcoin's institutional adoption. Let's go back and just look at Bitcoin over the years. If you look at 2009 to 2015, you had early adopters and crypto enthusiasts. Bitcoin was seen as a real experimental technology. I was not in the game at that point. I got in the game in 2018. So if you look at point number two, 2016 to 2020, you had the first corporate adopters come in. You had growing retail interest, and the game started to get semi-serious. And then in 2021 and 2023, the U.S. government recognizes Bitcoin as a digital commodity. We get the accounting rules in place. We have over 100 public companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheet now, moving to 2024 and 2025. And we've got major institutional adoption. We've got ETFs in play, and we've got a bright future for Bitcoin. So all the fundamentals are in play. Saylor says, powered by Bitcoin in his wonderful meme today. And if you want to check out, because there's talk about like, are these preferred stocks that strategies issuing the marketplace, like, are these things legit? And so they have a um, whole new site you can go to where you can plug your assumptions into their model for Bitcoin rating, Bitcoin risk, and Bitcoin credit across the fixed income instruments. So they have a whole site for this, which is super, super cool. So anybody who's looking to invest in something like this can go to the site, check it out, and see the legitimacy of it. So that's pretty cool. I'm not going to get into this. There's a whole bunch of charts here. I looked at them. I'm going to give you the cliff notes. This is from Dan Hillary. Bitcoin's volatility seems to be stabilizing along with long-term averages, but in contrast, MSTR remains more volatile. We all know this. Okay. The Bitcoin therapist highlights something that's pretty interesting. It says that the Bitcoin held on exchanges is falling below 2 million coins. It's the lowest level since the 2017 bull run. So that's pretty big. All right. So again, supply shock. Okay, it's coming. Saylor says chaos is good for Bitcoin, implying that global instability increases Bitcoin's appeal as a stable, independent asset. We all know that there's fights going on, but wars happening, all kinds of political instability, and chaos is good for Bitcoin, as Saylor says here. All right. Bitcoin therapist also says here, breaking news announcement: the U.S. Senate passed the Genius Act. So this is official news, and the Genius Act has been passed, which aims to expand the U.S. dollar's dominance globally. So it's extremely bullish for the U.S. dollar and for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin therapist thinks we're going into a 10-year-long super cycle. We shall see. Okay, so good news on that front. And Saylor is on Forbes, the Bitcoin alchemist. Check him out there. Look at this, the Bitcoin alchemist. You gotta love it. Okay? Gotta love the media, right? Gotta love the media, right? That's some of the things that are happening in the marketplace. I'm going to show you a couple other things here that I think are interesting to see the 4 different ways that MSTR, not MSTR, but the 4 different ways that America is really becoming a crypto nation, and why Bitcoin and the blockchain are going to explode. And I'm going to walk you through that right now. Okay. So this was interesting because there was an interview that Saylor did recently, and the woman was asking him about, what does he think about the future of Bitcoin? And there's certain companies that are getting involved and they're buying Bitcoin. And are these Bitcoin treasury companies going to succeed? And she pointed out the fact that, GameStop initially went up and then they went down. And so Saylor's response to that was simple. He said, you've got Trump media getting involved with like $50 billion worth of Bitcoin. He calls it an incredible, courageous, aggressive, and intelligent move. And then you have GameStop that's, making significant Bitcoin purchases. And the interviewer was asking him, hey, like, why did GameStop go down, or why didn't it work out so well for GameStop? But the reality of this is explained here. when you have companies like GameStop that they do a convertible note, like they issue a convertible note. Sometimes when the announcement happens that a company like that uh, buys Bitcoin through issuing a convertible note, you have a temporary drop. And so the interviewer was like, "Ah, the company dropped back down, and what's going on? Is this really good? Or companies that own Bitcoin going to be good in the future?" And he says, "Sometimes when this happens, you have a temporary drop, and the reason is when you sell a convertible bond, investors will often short the stock, and so they short the stock basically to cover their position because when you issue the bond, they don't know what's going to happen. They're like, hey, the stock might go down, so they short the stock to basically cover." And then if the stock goes down, they're going to buy the stock back at a lower price. And if the stock goes up, eventually they can convert. They can take the shares. They can actually convert into the stock in the future when the stock goes up in the future. So what he was saying is there's patience required when you see a company doing convertible notes because it might take several months for it to happen, but it will benefit the company. So, and basically, the sum of this was Bitcoin on the balance sheet has proven to be extraordinarily popular, and more companies are going to do this. Okay, so there you have that. Good. So, um, Saylor's position: we are going to keep on buying Bitcoin. That's the position. Okay, and the investment options today are we issue credit instruments, so people can pick one high risk, high reward, or low risk, steady return. Different types of investors. We covered that already, but that's important to know. We now have big money coming into the space and big money looking at these preferred stocks and fixed income instruments, which is fantastic. All right. So let's take a look here at the four different ways that the US is going to become a crypto nation. Okay. So number one, you have digital commodity. Okay. And that's an asset without an issuer, and that is Bitcoin. So we now know that US and many companies around the world are buying Bitcoin. Uh, we see new news every single day about more and more people planning to buy Bitcoin, more companies planning to buy Bitcoin. It's safe to say that we are moving towards becoming a Bitcoin nation, and this is happening. So you have digital commodity, you have Bitcoin, then you have digital currency, and digital currency. When you look at this, it's like a stable coin. So to explain this in more depth here, you have a stable coin would be this, like stable coins, they're backed one to one with real dollars. Okay. So this would be a digital currency in the marketplace. And then over here, you've got digital security. So you have digital security, which would be like one day we're going to see Apple and it's going to be tokenized on the blockchain. We're going to see Google, it's going to be tokenized on the blockchain. And that's what we're going to see. So we're going to have digital securities at some point. When we look at the entire world, it's going towards becoming a digital nation, a digital country, a digital civilization. We already are. Look at what we're doing on Zoom. Look at what we do with credit cards that are digital. Everything we're doing today is pretty much digital. So the idea on this is that one day you will be able to go and buy Apple stock 24/7, 365 because it'll be tokenized and it'll be on the blockchain. So we have digital commodity. We know we have that in place with Bitcoin. We have digital currency. We already have that in place with stablecoin and the Genius Act that just passed. We have digital securities coming down the pike. Well, you'll have Apple tokenized, Google tokenized, and then we have digital tokens like Joe Rogan token or Katy Perry token and things like that. There's social uses and things like that. So this is just fun stuff, right? To see where we're going when you look at the four different asset classifications of how we're becoming a digital nation. And there you go. That's the answer. Make sense? So pretty interesting to take a look at this. Like one day could the entire world look like this? And it's not too far fetched to think about it because if you believe Bitcoin is going to take over countries and governments in terms of it being the commodity out there in the marketplace that people turn to and it being the money that people turn to in the marketplace, then yeah, it's not too far fetched because we see it happening. And if you look at stable coins going in place, I mean, what the US just did in terms of passing this was genius for the US and genius for the banks to get in the game on this. And then, of course, one day we'll tokenize, Apple stock and tokenize Google. So this is not far fetched at all, and it's already in the works, and it's coming down the pipe. So that is the fun of what's happening in the world today. Consumer protection in crypto is important, and I think sometimes people are like, "Well, there's such enthusiasts of, like, freedom and sovereignty and all these things, and it's great, but we do need regulation of these things, and it's good that these things are being regulated, period." And so they should be liable under consumer protection laws, and Saylor says tokens should follow the law, and you shouldn't need to wait 4 years and spend 40 million just for business. So, like, we need regulation in place so people can get in the game and do this fast, and we get more and more Bitcoin treasury companies. We can get more and more protection for consumers and people who want to get in the game, use the blockchain, and so we just need consumer safety. Period. So that's the story for the day. Bitcoin as an American value, freedom, sound money, trust with a transparent system. Bitcoin is an American value. It's not just an American value. Bitcoin it's a global value at this point. Okay? More and more nations and countries turn to it. So that's what's going on with the story here. And I'm going to give you a few other interesting things here. So the holdings of Strategy are 592,000 Bitcoin that they have. $41 billion investment. Depending on the price of Bitcoin today, it's over $60 billion in terms of what they actually have in terms of the value of the Bitcoin. And Strategy, in terms of the value of the company, is over $100 billion. But there's considerations and concerns about Strategy being able to pay out their obligations. And so when you look at the dividend ratio of what they're paying out on their preferred stock, it's less than 1%. So their annual preferred stock obligations of $300 million is easily covered by their Bitcoin assets that they have. Because you look at the strength of their balance sheet, and they're worth $60 billion right now. So to think that Strategy doesn't have ways to come up with $300 million to pay this off is, I think, it's not a consideration. It's not a concern. It's less than 1% of their dividend ratio. So they're not over leveraged. That's the bottom line. Sometimes you need to fight for Bitcoin, Saylor says. This post came out a couple days ago. And then this is a good one from Jeff Walton. We're looking at a potential record-breaking quarter for Strategy. So it could be a $13.9 billion gain that could make it qualify for the S&P 500. So this would be huge. So again, coming to the end of the quarter here, end of June, we'll be at the quarter, and then about a month later, we'll have some announcements. And we'll see what the gain for Strategy is. And if they come out with a $13.9 billion gain or a $12 billion gain, I mean, this is huge. And then eventually they can get voted on to the S&P 500, and boom, we got automatic buys, and that's very exciting as well. This is another interesting post that's put out here about Bitcoin power law. So Bitcoin power law says that based on long-term trend lines, Bitcoin may never go below 100,000 after 2028, and it could reach $1 million by 2037. I think we're gonna hit $1 million Bitcoin before 2037 personally. And if this is accurate with this chart, and who knows, charts are just interesting to look at. Analyzing data is better than not analyzing data, but nobody has a crystal ball on this thing. Nobody knows exactly where it's going to go. But ultimately, I mean, that's pretty good to know if one bought in at $100,000, and if we have a bear or something drops, that eventually it'll recover. But I think in 2028, 2029, 2030, around that time, I think we'll be seeing a $500,000 Bitcoin, maybe $1 million Bitcoin. So we'll see what happens, but always nice to look at data. And what do we got here? Bitcoin Magazine is encouraging people to hodl during times like this. Bitcoin's doing well. It's stable. I think we're all just looking for the run. And this is a good one, too. Strategy Archive says there's no need to predict Bitcoin's price. Just accept that everything will lose value against Bitcoin over time. It was a very interesting video. You should search it out online. I watched it with Jeff Booth the other day. I watched the beginning of it, and he really talks about that things will lose value against Bitcoin over time, and he really breaks it down about how the value of Bitcoin is more than we think, and it's an interesting one to search out and check it out because he does a really good job. So if you have time, search it out on YouTube. Michael Saylor says America once bought 78% of its land for just $40 million. All of those investments paid off massively. If you look at Manhattan back in 1626 when it was purchased, the payoff today is $2.1 trillion. If you look at Louisiana, The payoff today, and bought it in 1803. The payoff today, $12 trillion. California in 1848, the payoff $8 trillion. Alaska, 1867, the payoff $1 trillion. Okay, I love how Saylor thinks in hundreds of years. It's one of the things that's really special about this guy. We're all thinking in the next couple months, come on, baby, let's go up. But Saylor's looking in hundreds of years, right? So you're looking for your grandkids if you're looking at these dates right here, 100 years, 200 years down the road, or if you're going to come back in your next life and pick up your Bitcoin. We'll see, right? So there you have it. That's the story. Bitcoin will be the largest asset in the world in the next 48 months. The post that Saylor had said the other day. We will see. Will it be? We will find out soon. And there's a very strong chance that Strategy might be the only public corporate company to ever reach one Nakamoto. This is a post from Chris Millis. Good job, Chris. So one day we will see. Will they have 1 million Bitcoin? So right now they have 592,000. That is the weather and the sports, my friends. Pretty interesting to see what's happening in the marketplace. There's some other good things to look at here, but I'm not going to get into it because we've been on a long time here. And there you go. Okay. So I'm going to take this down and we're going to end off So I think just two things. I think one, during a time like this, just my reflection on it is just being patient. And I'm sitting here watching MSTR trade sideways, just like you guys. I got a whole bunch of money in MSTR and Bitcoin, and we all want to see it go up. Number two, nothing happened big with the Fed today. They didn't cut interest rates. I don't think a lot of people were expecting that to happen, but they weren't expecting them to cut interest rates. They didn't cut interest rates, and here we are. And now we are waiting to see over the next 6 months if they will cut interest rates. In the next 6 months, prediction is that we might see 2 interest rate cuts. If we do, that would be fantastic. Put more money into the economy, more money into the money supply, and money will go into risk on assets. More people will be investing in Bitcoin and strategy, and we could hit our targets in the next 6 months. And Bitcoin could go to 150, it could go to 200. I'm hoping at least it's going to go to 150. I don't personally think Bitcoin's going to hit 200K. I think 180 might be the top if we have like a big run this year, is my personal opinion. And then strategy, we're going to see what happens with strategy. The research that I've been doing on it, when I look at it, is that we have a good support at 369 and 370. So a couple days ago, we saw it bounce down to 370. It bounced off and shot up to 376 and back up to 380 something. Today we saw it as well, where it shot down and went to like 369, 368, and it's kind of holding steady there. And from what I've seen, there's 9 or 10% of the outstanding shares are being shorted right now. So if it goes and drops below 365 or whatever, it could go a bunch lower. And it's a real possibility. So hopefully it bounces off 369, 368, 370, and it shoots back up. And it's just got to break through 395 and 400 again for us to start liquidating some of these shorts and for us to see some upward momentum. So, and of course, that's just looking at strategy by itself. Then, of course, we have to look at what Bitcoin does. And, Bitcoin shoots up to 120, 130. Who knows what's going to happen? I'm hoping we see something in the second half of June here. I was watching James from Invest Answers last night, and he was talking about how the first half of the month tend to be choppier when you're looking at crypto and Bitcoin. And so we'll see in the second half of the month. I mean, we're at June 18th already. It's going to be June 19th tomorrow. Let's get something going here. I'm looking for a rally. I'm looking for 120 by the end of this month. For us to be like, come on, let's get some damn momentum and steam behind this thing. And then if Bitcoin passes through 120, we'll see what happens with strategy. Hopefully it'll bust through the 400 point and just blow up. But we're all being patient. It's been trading sideways, up, down. And I also can say that I have seen this before in 2024 when I watched strategy. I remember a whole 6-month lag where it's just doing nothing, It's doing nothing. So I have seen it move like this before, but again, we're in a totally different environment, and looking at the past, there's no prediction of what's going to happen in the next 6 months. And the good news is just to zoom out and go, hey, we've got lots of people buying Bitcoin. We have lots of companies buying Bitcoin. We have more and more governments coming in with Brazil announcing that they're coming into the game. And we have more Bitcoin treasury companies coming. And hopefully the U.S. will get in the game and do something themselves and buy some damn Bitcoin instead of just sitting on 200,000 of Bitcoin and, you know, confiscated Bitcoin that's basically sitting there in the U.S., you know, treasury, you know? And China, I think, owns 200,000 also. That's from confiscated Bitcoin. So we got to get some governments in the game that make some real moves and some real plays on this. Certainly, we have independent companies like Trump Media doing some stuff about it, and all these other Bitcoin treasuries. So let's get some governments in the game making some big moves. We can make some big moves up. All right, hope this served you guys. Ultimately, let's see what happens, and let's just like keep our agreement in that this thing's going to happen and it's going to move because the more people agree about the future of Bitcoin, the more solid it gets. The more people agree about the future strategy, the more people invest, the more people in the game. Not financial advice to anybody, but I'm just saying the agreement's strong that these are solid assets, and in the future it's going to be great. Okay. So I will see you guys on the other side. Hope you enjoyed it. Wanted to give a little zoom out today on just the strength of strategy of the company. It is a strong company, and I know it's hard to watch sometimes. These other Bitcoin treasury companies mooning up. Metaplanet's gone through the freaking roof. Talking about the investment of the century if somebody made that. Wow, huge. And Japan's got its problems, but the cool thing is strategy is also looking to create products to go out in the marketplace for Japanese investors. I was talking about that in the interview the other day. So in Japan, they want their returns denominated in the yen, so in their currency. And so Saylor is talking about creating an entire fixed income product where they could go over to Japan and offer it to Japanese people. So that'd be pretty cool. So we'll see. Sometimes you got to fight for Bitcoin. That's right. That's Saylor's quote. So we got to fight for it right now. Stay strong. Stay strong. Stay strong. Stay convicted. And I'll see you guys on the other side. Have a good one.